speaker is ready. I know we're having issues with the Wi-Fi connections in some state with some guests, but we have to talk future of event tech. Hopefully the video is going to hold. If it doesn't, we'll just go with voice only. Let me welcome Jim Sharpe, CEO of Aventri, with us today. Hey, Jim, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Fantastic. I can hear you perfectly fine and see you perfectly fine.
Great.
So welcome to our session. 11,000 event professionals signed up for this. We're trying to we let everybody in at the beginning too fast. We wanted to take a little bit more time. Everybody's here now. They're booking meetings in the exhibitor area. Everybody's interacting on the platform. We're having a blast on social. But I want to talk the future of event tech. Obviously, being the geek that I am, this is the session I was looking for to geek out a little bit. But I also want to get to know a little bit more of your story, Jim. And let me officially introduce you here for everybody. Jim Sharpe joined Aventri as CEO in January 2020. And is focused on leading the global Aventri team as it executes on its vision to help the world connect better. Prior to Aventri, Jim was MD of GM of Gerson Lehrman Group, GLG, the largest and more profitable business unit financial services. In his capacity, led several hundred professionals and achieved significant expansion for user base while growing revenue to over $200 million. Jim, I mean, reading your bio, you joined Aventri as CEO in January 2020. This is an incredible timing, potentially for a virtual event tech platform, for a virtual platform. This is probably the most significant pivotal moment. What was that experience for you?
Well, it's certainly been interesting. And by the way, thank you for having me, and good afternoon or good evening to everybody around the world, wherever you are. Yeah, it was an interesting time to join a company in the space. I certainly get plenty of ridicule from my friends on the timing in January of this year. But no, it's been an interesting and very exciting introduction into the market. And to walk through sort of where I've been the last few months. After learning how to get into the building, I started spending time with the team. I did a listening tour, which is my favorite thing to do, where I went around the world and met with dozens of employees and clients. And that helped to inform the strategy that we were going to be rolling out over the next couple of years. We got that strategy approved with the board. We're ready to go. And what could go wrong? And then February happened. And with February, we had a front row seat because of Mobile World Congress being canceled in Barcelona. We were the tech partner for that. So we saw how confused everybody was about what to do in that situation. And we knew this was going to be a big impact on the business. So what we did was we immediately pivoted toward virtual, and we found a couple of partners in Evia and Intrado that helped our clients avoid canceling their events and still created good experiences in the moment. But while we were talking to customers, we started hearing more and more about the potential of hybrid events in the future. So we spent a decent amount of time starting to research that and decided that we were actually going to launch our own native program software that would allow hybrid, virtual, and live events to work together. And we were pleased in June to roll that out. What started as 4 developers working nights and weekends became a huge project for us. And we rolled that out in June, the first ever of the fully purpose-built integrated platform. And then our team right now is hard at work on some other features that we're going to be rolling out in September. So we're excited for that. At this point, the capacity of any one session is far north of 5,000, which is a big development for us. And we're going to be rolling out some very exciting things in the next few months. So a lot of it's been focused on that pivot. We haven't abandoned our strategy, but we've certainly pivoted. And then also we added a new board member, Lisa Choi Owens from TED. We were excited to bring her on board. We raised a large round of capital from our investors. So it hasn't been a dull moment in the last few months, but
let me go back a little bit to the pivot there, because we've seen a lot of smaller and medium sort of event tech companies that probably were doing registration or just apps, immediately repurposing themselves to virtual event platform almost overnight, some cases in the space of a week. If they had something going on, they obviously put more emphasis on that and started building it. And obviously you can expect something like that happening for a small to medium-sized business. But, I think Aventri is one of the few big players, in the top three in terms of size of the business that has been able to actually pivot successfully to a virtual event platform. How has that been, that process for you? What was the thinking behind it, and how did you go about it?
Yeah, great question. So it really takes a talented team, first of all, like everything I just described. Full credit to the team that I am lucky to work with at Aventri. It took a lot of vision and ability to pivot for a company of our size. So there's sort of three phases of the pivot that we've made. The first was this research phase. So we surveyed our client base through focus groups and surveys, and we talked to 147 organizers who told us a couple of things. The first thing they told us was that 91% were adamant that the virtual event was going to be part of the future beyond the pandemic. So we said, okay, we'll take note of that. And they referenced the fact that they'd be able to reach new attendees, sponsors, have a backup plan, all the attributes from that. So, but the other part that we learned from them was also that there was an underserved part of the market, which is the mid-market. So what you see in virtual event software is you have players at one end of the spectrum that are focused on these highly produced, very complex flagship trade shows. And then the other end of the spectrum is players like Zoom, where they do a great job with a teleconference. There's some content, but it's not a purpose-built solution that's really for a complicated event or set of events. And we saw this as an underserved market, given that we focus mostly on the enterprise. We have about 1,500 customers in enterprise. So we got to work, and we're really excited about building that type of event. So that was the first part, was this research side of it. The second side was focusing on the all-in-one platform. We've talked about this a lot here at Aventri, but we wanted to create simplicity because we heard that event organizers were finding the pivot to virtual to be complicated. You're inheriting a new technology, you're trying to learn how to use it, you're logging in and out of different software. We wanted to create an all-in-one solution that would allow you to go from virtual to live to hybrid, bring all your data with you, and do it at the click of a button. And that's the good thing that our technology has, is that there's literally a button which says, enable virtual event, and off you go. So we think that all-in-one part of it is going to allow people to have the entire event experience, especially the hybrid experience, in their toolkit going forward. And then the last part of the pivot was just capital. We were lucky to engage the two main investors that we have to do a large capital round, which helps to fuel our ambitions on virtual, but also gives us some capacity to maybe do acquisitions in the future. But in addition to being exciting for us, we think that's a big vote of confidence for the industry. These large investment firms in the teeth of the pandemic, backing companies like us. So we were very excited for that and fired up for the pivot that's underway.
It's a fantastic journey, I guess, for all of us to listen to. So let's talk future, okay? This is the future of the event industry. As we said at the beginning, we're looking at the next 6 months to 1 year, 9 months maybe. What does that look like for you as an event tech company? What are you seeing? What are the big themes that you're seeing in the next 6 to 9 months?
Well, I've seen the future, and it's bright. Now, we are excited about the future of events. So I think we all agree that nothing beats the value of an in-person event. So that's one thing. We see institutions and enterprises still buying software, investing in the future of events. So that's great. We do expect a recovery in Q4 of this year, where we'll start to see some of the in-person events come back, depending on where they are, the smaller ones. And then by Q2 of next year, we think we see a path to recovery where the B2B events will start to pick up, probably in record number of events, but probably smaller attendance than we've seen in the past. So that's sort of what we're banking on. But with it coming back, things are going to be different. COVID's going to leave its mark, and some of that stuff is going to be very positive for the future. This is an industry going through a lot of technological change. So to your question, 3 main areas. I mean, one is that the hybrid event is what we're really focused on. So we do think that the future of the event is having virtual components that reach new audiences and new sponsors, partnering well with the live event. So it's going to be a much more dynamic experience that can reach larger audiences. So we're excited about hybrid. That's the first trend that we're trying to make a mark on. The second is that of data and event intelligence. So we hear a lot about this in the space. I think in the short term, when events come back, you're going to have smaller teams under budget constraints. You're going to need to work hard to prove your ROI, and data is going to be helpful for that. But longer term, we think that for the first time, event organizers are going to have a much better toolkit for proving the ROI of their events and the impact that they're having on the bottom line because of the data that they have, which then can go to enrich and create better events in the future. So I think ultimately that just leads to a better experience for the attendee, where the attendee is experiencing a much more VIP level event experience because of the data that the organizer has about their preferences. So we're excited about this whole data element, and we sort of dream about what the future could look like if you have your app at the event and they know everything about you, and it helps real time create a better event for you. And then the last part is on-site technology. A lot of this is going to be coming from safety, but we think a lot of it's here to stay as well. Which, for example, think Apple Pay, think NFC wristbands, thing that allow you to maintain your data. We expect that to be a big trend to exchange information. We think that's going to lead to seamless check-in and badging, so that you can actually check in remotely, quickly get your badge on your own, but at the same time have a good experience doing that because of the data that allows them to create a VIP experience for you as you're checking in. And then lastly, I'll say facial recognition. We saw it at Mobile World Congress 2019. It's a great way to create a good experience for attendees, but also I think it's very important for session control and safety going forward. So that's how we're thinking about it overall.
Very interesting. Do you have any early case studies or examples from your clients that actually have been pivoting? Anything that you can share that can help event planners to understand what is working, what is not working, and some success stories there?
Yeah, I'll share one from that I discussed with our board last week because it's fresh on my mind. We've had numerous companies use our virtual system now for their own internal events or external events. But one example from the UK, it was a financial advisory firm. It wasn't the largest event, but it had some complexity. So I'll describe it. It's a group that throws a summer in-person event and then numerous events in the fall, all in person historically. They came to us in a bind. They had 4 weeks to get their event turned virtual, start to finish. And so we stepped in, we created the registration platform, we created the virtual lobby that they needed, and we created the mobile app that they were gonna have users leverage for interactivity. So we created that, and then we also trained all the speakers. So we had our professional services team train all the speakers, get all that working, and then we chaperoned each and every session to make sure that nothing went wrong. So it was a very hands-on event. We were proud, it went well, it was seamless. This one was 400 attendees, 3 tracks, so about north of 100 attendees per track. You had 49 speakers all over the world that we had to train and make their systems work seamlessly. We all know how hard that can be. And we also had people from 76 countries attending. So it was a very interesting event, and went well. The client expressed that they reached new audiences they never could have reached before. They reached new countries they could have never reached. They also shortened the duration of a lot of their sessions, which led to an 80% interactivity, meaning that most of the attendees were engaged because we were tracking that for them. So overall, it was a great success. And the CEO, in his closing remarks, said that obviously the success of that event was going to force them to think differently about how they do this in the future. And I think that spoke to hybrid and the value of hybrid events. So great case study, and many more on the way.
Wow, extremely complex. I mean, we know how complex these projects are becoming, and how key is becoming to have a partner there. We tend to lose that perception, when it gets to digital and we move from an offline environment where, as event professionals, we know the complexities, and we have 3-4 full black plans. We kind of let it go to a certain extent to fate when it gets to digital and virtual. And we know how important it is to have people that understand how to get back on track as fast as possible if things happen. So, I guess that looks like something like that, what you're describing right there. I have a question from the audience, Jim, right there. They're asking, beyond punctuated virtual events and eventually hybrid events, do you see any room for online community management in a more ongoing sense in the pipeline?
Yeah, so I think I assume that question is referring to like networking and the ability to better interact with the community.
Yeah, if you see these platforms and your platform specifically, I guess in this stage becoming sort of more of community elements, where then we can stay all year long and then attend the events, whether it's hybrid or in smaller capacity offline.
Yeah, that's a really, really bright question. I mean, I think that we are interested in sort of the longevity of creating communities through these events. If you think about the value of a hybrid system, you can participate virtually in certain ways day to day. You can participate in person at the next event, and your interactivity and your data with that platform stays in there. So there's really no loss of integrity of that. One place where we're really keeping an eye on is networking tools. So we're looking at technologies. We're actually building some ourselves, which allow during this event, for example, to have far greater interactivity with the person who's virtually sitting to your left or your right that you can't see the same way you can see live. So what we're looking into is different ways that you can create a more dynamic experience for the attendee through networking. And I think that will help build the community as well.
Absolutely. I have a lot of questions coming in, actually. Any indication from your clients? I mean, this is a question that obviously, it's more like the meaning of life and stuff like that about pricing virtual events versus in person. By the way, we're going to have a session about that in the event owner track. Emma, you asked about it later on. So just wanted to check with you whether you have any indication from your clients on how they've been successful in charging for events, or just are they still going free? Maybe because this is what the economic environment is, not necessarily the tool.
Yeah, in terms of the organizers themselves and how they charge for it. Yeah,
charging or going free for virtual events.
Yeah, what we've seen in this first iteration of the pivot has been more going virtual for free, and we've seen that, I think, because they haven't really ironed out the pricing model yet that works. And I think that you don't want to lose the brand equity of throwing that event. You don't want to, lose your relationships with the sponsors who've worked hard to be a part of that event. And you want your attendees to come and have a good time. So I think that we've seen primarily a pivot to free so far, but I do expect that that's going to become a very important discussion. Just like we're thinking every day about how we price our service for people who are throwing virtual events, because we're well aware of the fact that it's different. And but what we do expect is we'll see a world where the in-person event is priced a lot like how it has been. And then you'll see virtual event pricing that'll be different. It'll be on different scales. And that'll make it a rich environment where your end user, who may be located far away or uncomfortable getting on a plane, can make a decision about whether they want to get the benefits of the in-person experience or do it virtually. Yeah, but to your question, I think right now everybody's been focused on making sure the show does go on and providing a great experience for their constituents and worrying tomorrow about exactly how you price it.
Fantastic. I have a last question for you, really quick one. What do you think about the use of avatars in virtual environments like 3D, sort of more virtual events, which is what we refer to as opposed to online events, which is what we're having right now?
Yeah, I mean, pretty space age stuff. We're looking at it. I've certainly had people showing me different ideas and businesses about that. We're open to it. I think that's a little far down the field for exactly where we're trying to focus right now. I think we'd love to have thousands and thousands of events like this where people are interacting both hybrid and live and virtually. But as far as avatars go, I think that is part of the future. And I have thought about, what would it be if speakers like us were standing on a virtual stage right now in high def 3D? That would be a very, very interesting thing to see. So I guess anything's possible.
Jim, let me thank you a lot for sharing your vision, and congrats on the pivot with Aventri. Congrats also for the leadership joining the company in such an incredible tough time for the industry, but still keeping ahead, and also for facilitating the conversation here and making it possible through supporting the Future of the Event Industry event. I'm very, very happy you were able to join us. Thanks again, Jim Sharpe, CEO of Aventri.
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. All right, folks. Okay, what a morning. That was a great one.